Hi, this is El Gabriel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at air pollution, causes, effects, and what you can do to help reduce it. I started noticing air pollution after I moved to Los Angeles from Tampa, Florida. The air quality index in Tampa being 17, whereas it's 23 in Los Angeles. According to the World Health Organization, poor air quality can lead to health issues such as stroke, ischemic heart disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lung cancer, pneumonia, and cataract. I can't directly relate the two, but since moving here, I've also experienced worse respiratory issues than ever before, which is another reason why I'm curious about the topic. Here today with
Roxanne Gabriel.
Do you notice the poor air quality in the area? Is it visible to you?
Some days, yes. Yeah, it's definitely hazy or something. When I first moved here, I thought it was fog, but then I realized it's pollution.
Yes. Have you found yourself been leaning more towards electric vehicles recently?
Yes. In fact, when I was shopping for a car recently, I was looking for at least a hybrid, but I had some difficulties still finding what fit my needs. But I would eventually, yes, like to go at least hybrid or electric.
Really trimming down our environmental costs. Do these sound doable to you as a citizen?
Yes, definitely. And in California, it's probably easier because the climate is, so much better. So instead of using the air conditioning or heat, I can just open the doors and windows and let the breeze come in. I try to always turn off lights or electricity whenever I'm not using them.
Although the problem may seem daunting, there are things we can do as individuals to help reduce air pollution in our areas. Some examples are drive less. Options like public transit, biking, and carpooling are good replacements. If you must drive, consider looking into an electric vehicle. Conserve energy and electricity when you can by turning off lights when they're not necessary and using fans instead of air conditioning. These acts help reduce emissions released and help make the air cleaner. So, in summary, if you want to start helping the cause for cleaner air, small steps like public transit or using greener electronics can help reduce the pollution in our air. Although it just passed, stay tuned to participate in California Clean Air Day, the first Wednesday of October, an annual event organized by the Coalition for Clean Air, where the community comes together to take action with community events and pledges. You could make a difference in the air quality in LA. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, this is DJ Orchid. This is a report on one of the notoriously worst places to drive in, Los Angeles. As we know, LA has a lot of traffic. The average LA resident drives up to 100 hours per year. They also have lots, and I mean lots, of bad drivers. As an exercise, I asked my friends on Instagram their thoughts on the drivers, and to rate them from 1 to 10, here's what they said. People either don't use their blinkers, or one dude had the left one on, and he turned right in front of me. I'm scared of the 405. LA drivers try not to almost off yourself everyday challenge, level impossible. And the average score given was a whopping 3 out of 10. Yeah. So that got me thinking about how much LA would benefit from other modes of transport, like a more accessible tram system, or even being able to walk and bike. Take Japan, for example, who have been successful in integrating this. Their trains are clean, tidy, and on time. It sounds like I'm wishing for the bare minimum, but really, having train stops all over the country, where even foreigners are comfortable enough to take it, trains could be the most convenient transportation. If LA could have this, less people would worry about taking their own transport. Personally, I felt trapped in my first year of college simply because I didn't have a car, and I didn't want to walk 40 minutes to a frozen yogurt shop or Uber at the price of an arm and a leg just to see my friends at a different school. Now imagine bullet trains. Bullet trains were created to traverse Japan's mountainous terrain, reaching speeds of nearly 200 miles per hour. In 2017, its high-speed rail line rode 159 million passengers in that year alone. Not to say LA could build this rail line in overnight or in a couple years. I mean, they're still working on whatever they're doing at LAX. But in this imaginative world, imagine how easy it would be for your commute to work to sail so easily there and back in half or even a quarter of the time. You'd have more time for your hobbies, your family, seeing friends, possibly even sleeping more, who knows? I mean, yeah, there could be so much time saved that could be used for other things that could enrich yourself. It's no surprise that LA's emissions are just abysmal. If we think of each car running for 2 to 4 hours a day, 5 times a week, the estimate is around 4.6 metric tons of CO2 per year per car. Transportation takes more than 39% of LA's greenhouse gas emissions. With a promoted use of bike lanes, reliable transport, and pedestrian access, we don't have to make driving required. We don't have to force ourselves to take a 2-hour commute to school because they have alternate ways to get there. If LA takes steps towards supporting alternative transportation, we could have clearer roads and more accessibility to our communities. And I think we would let those dumb drivers off the road as soon as possible.
You're tuned in to Local News with DJ Serenity Star, keeping it real and keeping it local. Hello everyone, I'm DJ Serenity Star and you're listening to Local News. Today we're starting off October with quite an explosive story. An explosion and fire at the Chevron refinery in El Segundo sent massive flames into the night sky, visible for miles across the South Bay. I actually saw the flames from my apartment window that night, and it made me think a lot about these kinds of environmental events and how they affect the places we live, breathe, and build our lives around. Around 9:30 p.m., residents felt a powerful blast that shook windows and filled the sky with orange light and thick smoke. Firefighters rushed to the scene, battling a blaze that could be seen all the way from Manhattan Beach to Inglewood. Videos taken that night captured a huge fireball followed by a deep, roaring sound. By early Friday morning, officials said the fire was contained with no reported injuries and only minor visible damage to the refinery. Chevron called it an isolated fire and confirmed all workers and contractors were safe. That night, my roommate was the one who told me about the explosion, and I asked them to share what it was like from their perspective. So say your name.
Do I have to say my name? Are you gonna edit this?
Yeah, I'm gonna edit this.
Okay. Do I have to say my name?
No.
Okay, can we scratch that part? I don't have to say my name.
Well, you have to introduce. Okay, I'm here with my roommate. Would you like to start us off and say what you experienced during the night of the Chevron oil explosion?
Yeah, I'm a local Otis student, so I live in the Park West complex, which got a pretty good view, and I was home from work, locked out of my apartment, so I went to the campus, I went to the studio in the campus to find one of my roommates, and on my way in, some other student asked if I had an N95 mask, and so I said no. I don't. And they were like, you should absolutely get one. I thought we were all gonna die. I thought everybody was dying. And then they just said that there's a bunch of carcinogens in the air.
And how does that make you feel? Are you scared? Or just more so worried?
As like a person, I'm scared. As a person who smokes constantly, I am not so scared.
All right, well, thank you for this interview, and, have a great day.
Yeah.
Air quality officials said monitors near the refinery detected brief spikes of chemicals like benzene and formaldehyde, toxic compounds that can cause headaches, breathing issues, and even increase long-term cancer risk. While those levels drop back down to normal a few hours later, many residents still feel uneasy. I can't help but think there's no way something like this doesn't affect our air even temporarily, and it really highlights how much we rely on fossil fuels, even as we're dealing with the visible consequences right outside our windows. Thankfully, no one was hurt, and the fire was contained thanks to the quick work of local firefighters and emergency crews. Big shout out to all the first responders who kept the community safe that night. This was a reminder that the environment isn't some distant concept, it's right here with us every day. Alright, thanks for listening to Local News with DJ Serenity Star. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and keep looking out for your community.
Good day to all, and thank you for your time on this report today. I wanted to bring up a topic that is close to my heart as a product designer, and that is our Mother Earth. As we know, we have a limited time on this earth, and with that, we have a limited amount of resources. Being in a creative field that is constantly creating and making, it begs the question of where we obtain our supplies and how the products we design will impact our lives and the world. Creating is our purpose and our passion, and we owe it to ourselves and to the world to be mindful of what we leave behind. I'd like you to consider this idea for a moment. What is the difference between compostable and biodegradable? Your answer raises the question of whether we are truly aware of what we consume and what we leave behind. Take a quick listen to the shocking truth about biodegradable plastics.
This corn-based bioplastic needs a very specific cocktail of bacteria, heat, and temperature to break down. So in a landfill, it doesn't do that. Instead, a special facility is required, and as of 2009, there were only 42 commercial composting facilities in the U.S. which could process these so-called biodegradable plastics.
After listening to what we just learned, the main purpose of this report is to allow you to truly think back and to start to grasp what it means to be environmentally conscious. We all have a duty to this earth, and the difference between biodegradable and compostable is one that should be explained more clearly. Compostable products will eventually become one with the earth and leave practically nothing behind, whereas biodegradable products can leave harmful residues, take an excess amount of time to break down, and/or biodegradable in terms of industrial degradability, which requires recycling to a location that can handle the product's breakdown. This can be counterintuitive when trying to be environmentally conscious, as the industrial breakdown of products can cause more harm than good to the environment. Taking a step back, personally, in product design, I learned the distinction between composting and being biodegradable. However, many people are still unaware of the differences to this day. This complication and explanation can lead to misconceptions about the concept of circular composting and the circular lifestyle of products. This is a crucial consideration for both product designers and consumers, as they will be the ones shaping the future of products, consumerism, and our world. I leave you on that thought with just one message. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. Thank you.
Reverse climate change.
Hey, it's DJ Vivi.
You know how summers are only getting hotter, droughts are lasting longer, storms are getting more intense, the polar ice is melting, and the sea levels are rising. Well, that's all thanks to climate change, also known as global warming. Climate change is basically like the changes in the temperature and the weather patterns long term. There's like natural causes like sun activity and large volcanic eruptions, but it mostly adds up from man-made causes like how we've been living and burning lots of fossil fuels. And the carbon dioxide produced from things like driving, electricity, and deforestation wrap around the earth and trap heat in a sense. And then in turn, different regions are faced with more intense living conditions. Now for the areas I personally live in, the risks of fires and droughts are only rising. Like, heck, even the hill behind my home in the Bay Area caught on fire earlier this summer, but we're fine, don't worry. And then with droughts, it's also harder to grow some crops, which means less food can be produced. And then the food is just more expensive for me to buy. I'm on a budget here, you know. And sometimes in the winter, the rains do get really intense to the point of almost flooding. I'm here with my friend Kylie, who did a project on climate comedy last year. So, any thoughts or like trivia you want to share from your experience?
Yeah, so for my class, I focused on climate change and how it's affecting like the world, and came up with some like weird, or found some really weird facts, such as like goats are shrinking. Apparently, I don't know. Back me up, I'm smart.
Trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. Trust NASA. I think that's where I got it from. And also, like, baseball's easier to play because of, I believe it's the lack of air density. Like, balls are easier to fly in the air.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I know. So, if you ever want to start your major league dreams right now, perfect time. World might be burning down, but at least you'll be able to hit a home run. And there was also the Pizzly. So, because the ice caps are melting, rip, the polar bears are migrating, or no, grizzly bears are migrating more north, and they're meeting up with polar bears and creating these really dangerous bears called Pizzlies, or the Growler. Yo, new species just dropped. Yeah, but a bunch of interesting things, like the rat population is thriving and, you know, hasn't been this popular since probably the plague. You know, they're partying up in here.
New plague just dropped.
Exactly, let's go. But yeah, anything else you need me?
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Honestly, we're probably doomed no matter what, but it'd be great if we could all band together and try to make things slightly less worse. Things like switching energy systems to renewable ones, like solar or wind, hang drying clothes, unplugging unused appliances, sorting trash and recycling, and so on. There's also like walking, biking, or using public transportation, though I know California isn't the best at providing those things or like safe environments for that. But yeah, just be aware of your carbon footprint and try to make the world a bit better place to live in. Reverse climate change.
Well, I had kind of a two-part career in my life. I was a park ranger for about 16 years. For the Park Service, I was an interpretive ranger, and I designed exhibits through the archaeology department in the Park Service, and I also drafted or coordinated all the volunteers for the Santa Monica Mountains National Recreation Area. I had gone through some things with the city of Los Angeles. I saw things that I didn't want to see and experienced things I didn't want to experience. And the Park Service seemed like a haven I could teach, which I love to do. I could work with my skills, which was archaeology. I felt that I didn't have to see that ugly part of humanity. I could see the happy families and all that. And for me, I needed it for my mental health. And also, I truly believe in the mission of the National Park Service. And it made me feel like I was actually contributing rather than just trying to, it was better for the soul. You were actually feeling, I felt like I could make a difference there. I could teach people about why they needed to buy into the preserving the environment, why wildlife was important, the beauty of their environment, so that they could just understand that we are one with nature. I'm an old hippie, and understand why it was important to protect that. With the Park Service, people go in there with a different attitude. They want to learn, usually. They want to understand. And then we also had kids come in that I would teach who'd never been to a park before, who'd never seen anything more than a squirrel before. And you could show that to them. You could show the nature, and it was just like, you could see the spark of understanding and the spark of joy, that there was more to life. And that's always something I've always wanted to inspire in other people. I wanted them to understand why it's important to protect our world and our parks and our wildlife. I haven't met anybody in the Park Service who doesn't have that kind of philosophy. We need the protected areas. You can see that what's going on in Los Angeles with the mountain lion. Part of that is getting people to understand why mountain lions are important. Buying these lands and preserving lands and making thoroughfares for animals is important, because you show people that without that, we're going to lose these magnificent animals of all kinds. And they're important. The ecosystem needs these animals. We as people need these animals. We're all part of the same thing, and one thing cannot exist without the other. Humans tend to become really detached from nature, and that's horrible. We are not above nature. It's all part of the same thing. We are animals. They are animals. We all need to coexist, and teaching people about that's important. Creating these spaces where animals can exist and survive and hopefully thrive is vital, because once you start losing those natural areas and start losing those the other creatures, it's not too long before we get lost. Losing them we lose our humanity. If people think, okay, well, we're isolated from nature, we're isolated from these animals, that's that, but they don't seem to understand that what happens to them will eventually happen to us. We are losing what it is to be part of this planet, and it will be easier for something like that to happen. Biggest threat, and I don't know if you could put this in there, is the administration, who doesn't see the value, who only sees things in terms of economics. The biggest threat are people who just don't look into the future. They're also cutting funding for the Park Service or anybody else to go out there and talk about why this is important, because they don't want people to stop them. If the Park Service doesn't have funding, which they've been cut to do their outreach programs because they're considered woke, it's going to get worse and worse. There's several things. One, donations. Not just of money, but volunteering, just little things, like volunteering in the visitor center to help other people understand what's important. Going to the parks and bringing your children, that's the most important thing. Bring those kids in so they understand why it's important. Get those kids understanding what nature is, how beautiful trees are, how cool it is to see birds flitting from tree to tree, hearing like the sound of wind in tree limbs. Those kinds of things are valuable. And what people can do is just go to their parks and show their children why those parks are needed. It'll happen here in California, but throughout the country, it needs to happen. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for people to get into their parks to see the value. If people understand why they're important, people will support and they'll try to stand up and fight the cutting of funding, because that's just, that's going to kill it. We can't let these things go. So.
Hi, I'm Kelly Huang, a junior in toy design at Otis College of Art and Design.
Strive to save the time today. Strive to save the time. Oh, hey, every step will make it stay.
This is my report on the quality of Los Angeles beaches and what happened after the fires earlier this year. Beaches aren't just pretty views, they're places to exercise, to relax, and to reset. But when the water isn't safe, that experience disappears. Earlier this year, wildfires across Los Angeles sent ash and debris into the ocean. Suddenly, swimmers and surfers had no clear health guidelines, and many worried about getting sick. According to LA Times, Santa Monica ranked as the second dirtiest beach. That news did not surprise me. I went there 2 years ago and it didn't feel clean then. My old roommate, a surfer from Mexico, used to tell me how much cleaner her home beaches were. Her words stuck with me. People wanted answers fast. However, they had to wait for water tests to confirm whether it was safe. That delay showed just how unprepared we were for fire-related ocean contamination. Heal the Bay, a nonprofit based in Santa Monica, responded quickly. They launched Ash to Action, collecting sand and water samples to test for toxic chemicals. They even rescued endangered tidewater gobies after the Palisades fire, caring for them for 5 months before returning them to the wild. Meanwhile, Los Angeles County created a post-fire assessment plan. It now monitors air, soil, and ocean water, so people know when the beach is safe.
Strive to save the time today. Strive to save the time. Oh, hey, every step will make it stay.
Since I wasn't able to connect with Heal the Bay in time, I spoke with my roommate Rachel. They're an avid fan of marine life, especially whales. I wanted to hear their perspective on why clean beaches and oceans matter. Why do you think clean beaches and oceans are important for people and for animals?
One, the beaches are incredibly important for general animal life. That's where their homes are especially like marine mammals or like crabs, a lot of the smaller creatures. That's their habitat. And if it's like completely crowded with plastic, especially glassware, it's incredibly dangerous for them and it just messes up their habitat. And for us, if you ever want to go down to the beach, you're going to step on so much random stuff. And it's just like no one wants to be in a beach that's completely overrun with trash.
From what you've learned, what kinds of pollution do you think affect animals or marine life the most?
Definitely, like the fires were definitely bad, just ash pollution. And a lot of plastic waste goes into the ocean, and that's very dangerous physically for them. So I think that stuff, but also oil goes into the ocean, and that's just completely, like, if you see like any like videos of penguins that are like covered in oil that need to be cleaned up, it's incredibly sad. So a lot of our trash goes to the ocean because people don't really think about the ocean. I think it's like you don't see it, it doesn't exist to you. So it's just stuff that you need to be more mindful about.
If you were in charge of warning the public about ocean safety, what would you want people to know?
Thinking about the ocean actively is what's really helpful. Like, a lot of people don't know that that really happens to a degree. So they're not seeing all these animals being messed up. And I think bringing that to light would be something I would want to do if I had that power.
Mm-hmm. Like education, like early. What's your favorite thing about whales or marine life?
I love how like just huge whales are. I've always been really amazed by like how the ocean can curate the most like diverse animal species, the wide variety of animals that can be found in the ocean, and how intelligent they are. You know, they have whole communities.
What's one thing everyday people can do to help protect the animals and keep the ocean unpolluted?
Recycle. Something I like to do is pick up pieces of trash when I see them. I think a lot of people just like leave, and it would do so much just to pick up like one piece of trash you see on the ground that day, because then that doesn't go to the wayside, and we live by the beach, so it's gonna end up there anyway. Yeah, like just general like, what can I do to make the world less dirty is kind of how I think about it.
Try to save the tide today. Try to save the tide. Oh, hey, every step will make it stay.
And that was my interview with Rachel. It was pretty inspiring and insightful. It's nice to know even local people want action. And having that awareness and having a conversation is the first step.
Clean beaches aren't a luxury, they're a right. We shouldn't have to travel far or risk our health just to enjoy the ocean. So here's the call to action. Support organizations like Heal the Bay, join a cleanup, spread the word. Because protecting the ocean means protecting our community. This has been Kelly Hong, reporting on the fight for clean beaches in Los Angeles.
Try to save the tide today. Try to save the tide. Oh, hey, every step will make it stay.
Fast fashion. Quick to buy, slow to fade. Hi, I'm Nova, and I think the environmental impact fashion has is a huge problem. It's actually one of the leading industries for pollution. I used to buy a lot of fast fashion because it was cheap and trendy, but after learning more about what really goes on behind it, like the poor quality, waste, and unfair working conditions, I realized it's just not worth it. I major in fashion design, so I'm always thinking about how I can create in more sustainable ways and still make things people love to wear. It made me wonder, where does all of this clothing actually go? And what kind of impact does it have, especially here in LA? That's what I wanted to find out. When you hear the term fast fashion, what comes to mind for you?
I think like online shopping sites like Shein, and like Romwe, and like all those Instagram brands that you keep seeing on your like story page.
Yeah.
Those come up for me.
Yeah. And do you think social media plays a big role in encouraging fast fashion and overconsumption?
Yeah, I definitely think that. I think that like seeing new Instagram trends and these like brands being recommended to you like every other minute is definitely like pushing for more overconsumption. And then I also think that the way like TikTok influences trends and like almost like forces trends to happen definitely also adds to like the way that people consume.
So how do you feel fast fashion affects our community?
With how fast trend cycles are, fast fashion brands and companies, in order to meet the supply and demand, they just keep creating clothes that are on trend, and then as the trends die and new ones emerge, they just keep creating more and more clothes, and it's sort of a never-ending cycle.
And do you think people care more about sustainability now?
I think they do in sort of response to the fast fashion, like the increase in fast fashion because of the trend cycles, and I think people are definitely trying to be more sustainable with the clothes they buy, definitely more like thrifting, get secondhand clothes. So like even if they are produced from fast fashion companies, they're then like finding their way into thrift stores and then people are buying them that way.
What they said really made me think. We want to express ourselves through clothes, but at what cost? Fast fashion. Quick to buy, slow to fade. Fast fashion might be built for quick trends, but the damage it leaves behind lasts much longer. It gives us instant gratification, new styles, low prices, but what we don't see is the waste, the pollution, and the people behind the scenes working in harsh conditions just so we can keep up with the trends. Studying fashion design has made me think differently about what it means to create. I think that's what sustainability is really about, slowing down and giving more meaning to what we make and what we wear. I've realized that slowing down doesn't mean giving up style, it means giving our choices more meaning. And I think that awareness alone is the first step toward real change. Fast fashion. Quick to buy, slow to fade.
Hi, I'm DJ Moonlit Vampire, and as a vampire who also works in housing, I know a thing or two about entering people's houses. I've only lived next to airports my whole life, John Wayne and Irvine and LAX, as you know, in our backyard here at Otis. Recently, there's been a lot of construction at the Park West apartments, and if our residents went to the housing orientation, they would know what's happening, but I'm here to tell you why it's happening. The airport is sponsoring construction at the Park West apartments on doors, balconies, windows, and air conditioning units for better quality of life living near the airport. The windows and doors are bigger and thicker to accommodate sound pollution, and the air conditioning is being replaced for better air quality. Otis and regular Park West residents are being asked to clear their belongings 5 feet away from the areas that have construction planned for them, and housing assistants, which I am, have been assisting the pro-housing staff with walkthroughs of units of Otis residents. And here's what some of them have to say about this process. When asked if she noticed a difference in her quality of life at Park West before and after construction, resident Mia Lawson said, "There's barely a difference in noise reduction in the common space. However, in the bedrooms, the noise is quieter." Mia also mentioned that the AC is good. When Mia moved in, it was leaking and the construction fixed it. I also asked her about the inconvenience of the construction project, as the window of time is told to residents to be a 15-day window and an estimated 10-day construction period. Mia Lawson reported that it was, quote, super inconvenient, end quote, because, quote, you can literally not be there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and mentioned that she missed her 3 p.m. naps during this period. I also interviewed resident James Collins, who hasn't had construction on their apartment yet, to see how well the Otis Housing Office has prepared their unit for the construction period. Resident James lives with an emotional support animal belonging to their suite mate, and mentioned that while the Housing Office and Park West Office has done a good job at letting them know far enough ahead of time, that having even more specific details about the construction would help the roommates accommodate the needs of their cat, Maple. So, this construction project seems to have mixed feelings, but the verdict seems to be that it's just massively inconvenient for everybody involved. I hope this was educational. Thank you for listening. DJ Moonlit Vampire out.
Hi, my name is Ava Gallant. I'm a resident of Manhattan Beach, and today I'm going to be talking about an incident that occurred on October 2nd, 2025 at the Chevron oil refinery. A massive explosion occurred in the refinery's jet fuel unit, and for a moment, it felt like the whole South Bay was holding its breath. The entire sky was lit up in bright red after this massive explosion, and today I wanted to talk about how this affected our community. Immediately after the explosion, a shelter-in-place ordinance was sent over to nearby residents. However, we weren't sure what had happened yet. All that we knew is that an explosion had occurred and the sky had turned red. I wanted to conduct an interview with one of the local residents on my street, Rachel, to kind of give you guys an idea of what it felt like at that moment.
So I was fast asleep under my covers. It was around 9:45 p.m. And all of a sudden, my son, who's 9 years old, comes into my room, shakes me and says, Mommy, a bomb just hit us and the sky is filled with red. I flew out of bed, looked around, and then realized it wasn't a bomb, but there was a fire right near us.
Well, along with all of these mental impacts, there was also physical impacts. Luckily, no injuries were reported. However, monitors detected spikes in volatile organic compound and particulate matter, which are tiny pollutants that can irritate lungs and worsen asthma. Officials said that the readings would return to safe levels within hours. However, many residents reported waking up coughing and with sore throats. This is a massive local issue. The Chevron El Segundo refinery has been here for more than a century and produces nearly 300,000 of barrels of oil every single day. It is one of the biggest Southern California gasoline and jet fuel suppliers, but it also sits next to homes, beaches, and schools. That night reminded many residents just how closely the heavy industry and daily lives are intertwined. Again, students with asthma are told to stay indoors, sports practices were canceled, and parents were wondering if the air was truly safe. This company said that it was their top priority to keep the community safe. Yet if that were really the case, then would an incident like this have happened in the first place? It just makes us wonder if they truly have our best interest at heart and if they're taking all the measures necessary to keep the community and environment safe. Well, for residents and environment of Manhattan Beach, clean air is crucial to our everyday living. Not only should we be responsible to check our clean air apps and support environmental safety programs, as well as speaking up at city meetings, but we should also rely on these bigger companies to truly invest in real-time air quality sensors and clearer public alerts, as well as long-term monitoring for chemical exposure. It is our job as a community to speak out, because when the air clears, our voices shouldn't fade, and we are here to stand up for clean air for the South Bay. The planet's not your playground, Chevron. We're done.
Hey, it's DJ Saren. I'm a junior student at Otis College of Art and Design, and today we are going to be talking about some recent environmental issues that have been apparent across LA and California overall. And our topic is, drumroll please, wildfires and air quality. And they go together for sure. So let me first define what wildfire smoke is. Wildfire smoke is a complex mixture of air pollutants fueled by strong, dry Santa Ana winds, low soil and vegetation moisture, as well as scarce rainfall, which we barely get any of. Wildfires can have public health impacts that extend far beyond the fire, impacting people and communities hundreds of miles away. We don't need to be right next to a fire in order to experience the effects that it has on our environment as well as in our atmosphere. You can just tell the skies are usually orange. It looks very cloudy, very musty. Depending on how close you are, there might even be ash in the sky. Inhaling smoke, toxic air, and ash can interfere with your nervous system and increases the chance of a dysregulated heart rate. This can also lead to chances of heart attacks, inflammation in the lungs, as well as the heart and brain. Inhaling very small particles can pass the body's defenses and go into your bloodstream. Some other symptoms that you might also face if you are near be difficulty breathing, wheezing, coughing, scratchy throat, asthma attacks, dizziness, headaches, and more. Smokes from fires that burn artificial materials such as buildings and vehicles can expose a lot of people to elevated levels of toxic metals such as lead and copper, and in burn areas, ash contains many toxic materials as well. That's why it's so important that we bring awareness to this and make sure that people are staying safe and a good distance away from these fires if they are anywhere near. Good way to tell if your air quality is good or bad is to check apps and websites that you can look at. California Smoke Spotter is a great app to try out, as well as the airnow.gov website, which checks the air quality within your area via your zip code or your state. You can also check out the official California website, ca.gov/LA fires. Okay, let's crunch these numbers. California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, or CAL FIRE, reported that hand crews provided 4,375,811 emergency hours battling wildfires. This was reported in 2024 by the CDCR. The 2024 year saw around 8,000 wildfires in California, burning over a total of 1,049,963 acres. And in January alone of 2025, more than 1,200 fire crew participants assisted CAL FIRE with 4 major fires in Southern California. Their contributions amounted to around 561,000 collective hours as they battled blazes that burned 57,000 acres and destroyed 16,000 structures. Even the newsroom from UCLA reported that in February of 2025, around 55,000 acres were burned, which is roughly the size of Washington, D.C. A good way to tell if you are near a fire and if you need to be careful is by this. If you can smell smoke or even see ash, you are exposed and should take precautions for your safety and health, not just for you, but also for those around you. Wear masks, N95 masks if possible, and gloves if needed. Stay inside, especially kids, elderly, people with health conditions, as well as pets. Make sure you close windows, doors, and any outside ventilation. Prevent the air from outside from going inside your home. Run the AC, fan, and or air purifiers to help cleanse out the air. Check the quality of the air near you and evacuate if levels get too high. Overall, you need to prioritize your safety. Your life matters the most in this situation. These fires are a collective trauma, and we LA residents have been impacted directly and indirectly, physically and mentally. As someone who's been an Otis student for over 3 years, I've had situations where we were supposed to stay inside our houses, inside of our dorms, classes were canceled or put on Zoom, and I couldn't even go to work. Even my work was canceled because the air quality was just that bad. And it was a very scary experience to have to go through as someone who didn't originally live in LA. But yeah, I hope that we can bring more awareness to this and make sure that we are more prepped and careful for these sorts of situations.
Scrap soil, LA compost.
Hi, I'm Kalia. Today I want to talk about food waste, something that affects me personally. Every day at home or even at school, I see leftovers and scraps tossed into the trash. Honestly, it bothers me, because here in Los Angeles, most of that food waste ends up in landfills. And when it rots there, it releases methane, a greenhouse gas that makes climate change worse. But what if all of that waste could be turned into something useful? In LA, we're surrounded by farmers markets, gardens, and green spaces, but the soil beneath us is often dry and unhealthy. That's where LA Compost comes in. They've built compost hubs in neighborhoods all over the city. People bring their banana peels, coffee grounds, and veggie scraps, and instead of rotting in a landfill, those scraps are transformed into healthy soil. soil that goes right back into local gardens, schools, and parks.
LA compost.
I talked to someone at one of LA Compost's hubs to hear what the process feels like from their side. They said, "I bring my food scraps here every week. It feels good knowing I'm part of the cycle instead of adding to the trash." They also said, "The compost from this site actually gets used in gardens across LA, so you can see the difference in the soil. It's darker, richer, and plants grow stronger." In hindsight, hearing that made me realize composting isn't just about waste management. It's also about building healthier communities, one bucket of scraps at a time.
LA compost.
So what can we do? Start small. Instead of throwing food away, collect your scraps. Bring them to a local compost hub, or see if your school can start a program. Every orange peel, every coffee ground, it all makes a difference. Together, we can cut down on landfill waste and actually create something that gives back to the earth. To me, food waste doesn't have to be waste at all. It can be the start of something new. Composting is simple, but it's powerful. It turns something we usually throw away into something that nourishes our neighborhoods. That's why I believe composting is more than an environmental act. It's a community one.
Turn scraps to soil. LA compost.
Clean air, easy living. Hi everyone, this is Kelly. Today the topic I want to talk about is wildfire and air pollution. This is not some distant news story. It's something we actually experienced earlier this year. The wildfire in Los Angeles this past January left a really strong impression on me. And this is actually the first time me facing this kind of things. I remember stepping outside and the air was full of smoke. The sky looks great, almost like it was covered by fog but actually smoke. I usually like looking up outside for the blue sky, but during those days, I didn't even want to go outside. Even with the windows closed, I could still smell faint burning smell inside the house. I have also asked a couple of friends how they felt at that time, and they had similar experience. So here's some comments from them I had recorded. The first one is, the clouds look so low and heavy. The colors of the sky were depressing, like the end of the world. Every day felt like walking through a layer of smoke. Even with a mask on, I could still smell it. So hearing those comments let me realize that I wasn't the only one feeling anxious. Everyone was affected. And this made me think about how close environmental issues really are to us. A wildfire isn't just a natural disaster somewhere far away. It directly impacts our daily life and our health. When the air gets bad, it's harder to concentrate on studying. Going out became inconvenient, and it just makes people feel down. So my takeaway is that even though these problems feel huge, there are still small things we can do. For example, like driving a little less and bike more, saving energy and cutting down on waste. These small choices might not solve everything right away, but if more people take action, it really can add up over time. So I hope that next time we're facing something like this, we'll be better prepared. And maybe we can also reduce how much damage it brings to our life. So, clean air, easy living. Thank you for listening. This is Kelly.
Fixing Fashion Consumption by 2030, My Vision for Change. By Mai. When I stand in front of my closet, I sometimes feel overwhelmed. It's filled with clothes I barely wear, items I once thought I needed but now just sit untouched. I know I'm not alone in this. Around the world, fashion has shifted from something meaningful to something disposable. We buy more, wear less, and throw away faster than ever before. And the consequences are far bigger than just a cluttered wardrobe. This issue hits especially close to home for me. My name is Mai, and I'm a junior fashion major. I've always been an avid shopper. I love the feeling of putting together a new outfit or discovering a unique piece. But the more I've studied fashion, the more I've come to understand the hidden costs behind the clothes we wear. As someone who plans to build a career in this industry, I feel a deep responsibility to be part of the solution. When I step into the field, I don't just want to create beautiful things, I want to contribute to systems that reduce fashion's negative impact on the planet. I want to design with intention, work with brands that prioritize sustainability, and use my voice to push for change. That's why this matters to me, not just as a student or consumer, but as a future fashion professional. The fashion industry, as it exists today, is unsustainable. The average person buys far more clothing now than they did just 15 years ago, but we don't keep those clothes long. Globally, more than 100 billion garments are produced each year, but most of them, nearly 90%, end up in landfills or burned within a short time. Fashion is responsible for a staggering amount of global carbon emissions and is one of the biggest consumers of water. But the impact isn't just environmental. Behind the cheap prices we've come to expect are millions of garment workers, many of whom are underpaid and working in unsafe conditions. This is not a system that we can continue to support. It's
Fashion that cares, fashion that stays for people and earth. Let's change our ways.
But we need a clear plan and the will to act now. For me, the first step is cutting back on overproduction. We've normalized a level of consumption that simply doesn't make sense. The solution isn't more clothes, it's better clothes. We need to shift the fashion industry toward quality, longevity, and timeless design. That means supporting brands that produce responsibly and putting pressure on those that flood the market with cheap, throwaway fashion. Governments have a role to play here too, by setting regulations that discourage overproduction and waste, and by holding companies accountable for the environmental damage they cause. If a company profits from selling clothing, it should also be responsible for what happens when those clothes are thrown away. Just as important is rethinking the life cycle of our clothes. I want to see a future where reuse, repair, and recycling are the norm, not the exception. I imagine a city where there are community repair shops on every corner, where people learn to sew a patch rather than buy a replacement. I believe in building an economy where secondhand clothes carry pride, not stigma, and where renting an outfit for a special event is as normal as renting a movie. To make this happen, we need infrastructure, investment, and public support. But reducing waste isn't enough if the people who make our clothes continue to be exploited. Every worker deserves dignity, safety, and a living wage, no matter where they live. We need to shine a light on the supply chains that have been hidden from public view for too long. Brands must be transparent about where and how their products are made, and consumers like me should demand nothing less. I want to know that the shirt on my back didn't come at the cost of someone else's well-being. Ultimately, none of these changes will matter if we don't also change our mindset. The culture of consumption, the constant push to buy the next trend, is something we've been taught. But we can unlearn it. I believe in the power of education and storytelling to shift how we see fashion. We need to talk about the true cost of our clothes, not just the price tag. We need to teach future generations that style isn't about how much you own, but how you use what you already have. We can create a culture that values creativity, individuality, and sustainability over waste and speed. By 2030, I want to look back and know that we turned things around. I want to live in a world where fashion isn't fueling climate change or injustice, but is part of the solution. A world where fewer clothes are made, but each one tells a story and lasts a long time. Where workers are treated with respect, and where wearing something old is just as exciting as wearing something new. This change won't be easy. It requires governments to act, businesses to rethink their models, and each of us to take responsibility for our choices. But it is possible. And it starts now with awareness, with action, and with the belief that a better fashion future is within our reach. I'm ready to be part of that change.